Yes.
Right.
King of Prussia.
Yeah.
All right. So just wanted to welcome everyone tonight. This is Katie from West Ham, Philadelphia, or Miss West Ham Philly, as you all know me. Just want to go around and have everyone introduce themselves before we jump into our topics this evening.
Lovely. I'll start. John, you can reach me here on the Twitter. Yeah, lifelong suffering West Ham fan, ready to talk about the team that we love and hate and love, probably hate a bit more. Whatever the topics come up tonight, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about you as well, Katie, since it's your first time hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to go all here?
You go ahead, Joss.
All right. So I'm Joss. That's not my Twitter. John's really smart and put his Twitter.
Yeah.
But this quarantine's been great because I haven't been depressed on the weekends all the time anymore. So that's one of the good things that come out. But I do miss West Ham, and I'm ready for the season to start up again.
All right. And I'm Wally. I live very close to John, and actually Katie is not too far away. And I live very close to King of Prussia. And Foshizi in the chat room, I have to thank him. He started calling me King of Prussia. And you know what? I like the title. It's good to be the king, you know? So, and one thing I have to add, being in Pennsylvania, our liquor stores are closed.
I know.
But you know what? My daughter scored me some gin from the this is Juniper Gin from Phoenixville, PA. There's a distillery there.
Ooh.
And she brought me back some nice gin and some nice whiskey. So yeah, we're gonna have fun.
Well, you can actually go to Five Saints in Norristown as well. They have great Tuscan gin and a maple bourbon butter pecan rum.
Oh, you know what? Yes.
Too many things. That's too many things.
But it is fabulous. You can just sip it straight up.
And do they sell you bottles that you can?
Yep, you can drive by and pick it up. They're still open.
Yes. What's that called? I'm sorry to distract us.
It's okay.
This is important.
Five Saints.
Five Saints.
Yep.
I'm writing it down.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk about a little bit of my passion in regards to the sport of footy. We're talking about the tactics and the technical aspect, which I continuously provide my insight to Wally every week. He may not want to hear it, but I tell him how I feel.
No, it's great. You know, Katie and I and John, you've been to Stowe's in Philadelphia where we watch the games live there. And when I sit with Katie, I learn so much, you know, because she knows what the players are supposed to be doing rather than what they actually are. And I only know, like, I think Fredericks is awesome because he just goes sprinting up the field. So anyway, I learned so much from you, Katie.
So Katie, why don't you give us a background? Like, what level did you play at, and for how long?
Yeah, so I started, playing YMCA, 3 years old. Everyone in this area knows all about that, all the way up through college. So I played D3 in college. So it gave me, a very strong love of the game. I didn't want to play D1 because I wanted to have, a fair balance between, school and sports. But truly, they say D3 athletes, really, they're the ones that love the game. We're not getting paid to pay the sport. We're out there, grinding. So typically when I have a passion towards a certain player or if they irk me in a certain way, it's typically coming from that background. So, I truly do love it. And I'm sure everyone else in this room feels the same way after the past couple of weeks. We're really missing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, you've had some strong views about Antonio. Now, from my point of view, he's a great athlete and everything, but you feel different or, that he's maybe not playing the position right or not doing them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like in the chat room, we always have a mixed review of Antonio. I don't want to spend too much time on him, but, just to touch on that kind of from the technical aspect, Antonio's great because he, goes for those 50-50 balls. He will hustle and use his muscle, which is fabulous. He is not your standard soccer player, skinny. Like, he is built so he can muscle people off the ball, which is tremendous. But when it comes to his attack, he's very much kick and run. He has no control over the ball, doesn't collect and settle. You know, often the games that we lost this past season, we were ahead or we were in a good position, and then we got out of control. People didn't settle back, collect the ball, and redistribute. So that's kind of my biggest thing with Antonio. And a reason why I always got extremely frustrated with him is because he just kind of seems like he's all over the place. It's great when he wins those 50-50 balls, but, what good is it going to do you at the end of the day when you turn it right back over? So
Right.
I don't know if John or Joss, you want to add anything else on that?
Good, Joss.
I was just going to say that Antonio, whenever he starts running, it just always feels like he's on the brink of losing control, especially recently. He's just seemed like this close. And I remember 16, 17 Antonio, I think he was slimmed down. He wasn't as built, but I think he had more control over his body movements when he ran and when he reached that top speed. And I think that was the best Antonio that we've seen. Also, Antonio I do like because, like you said, he works hard. He goes for the 50-50s. He can go a long-ish time, I think. I think he can almost reach a full 90 if he's saving his energy. I just think that he's very technically limited. So maybe that's what makes him a great partner for Haller, because Haller is that big, bulky dude, but he's also very technically strong. He's got great feet. He's got great movement. He understands the game well. So that might be what makes their partnership work so well. And then one more thing, I think that in the game against Arsenal, the game that we lost 1-0, where Antonio had those chances, if Chicharito were there, we score those goals and we win the game. So I will say that that's sort of where Antonio lacks, is his finishing ability, his tech, like how good he is technically, but he still works hard. He loves the club. He's fast. He's strong. He's an athlete. So there's always those swings and roundabouts with Antonio. He's just that kind of player.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question truly is that enough? It seems like that's how we feel about many of our players. If we had so-and-so, we would be good.
Yeah. And I guess it sucks because we had Chicharito. He scored against Brighton and then we sold him.
Exactly.
Now, the Chicharito doesn't play the same way that Antonio does, so there's arguments to whether he would be in those positions or not, or if Moyes would even play him, because I know that Moyes didn't like him. But I mean, if Chicharito were there, he scores. That's just my personal opinion. I still like Antonio. I think that he has a lot to offer, and he's a good player to have around the club.
So let me ask you guys a question. I'm kind of throwing this out from left field. Because I kind of like the tactical side of play, who do you think was a better coach at this point? Pellegrini or Moyes? Who do you think tactically coaches better for our team over this past year?
It's a tough question.
That's
a very tough question. I think Pellegrini came in with all the pedigree. I think he came in with the right talking points. I think he was actually backed pretty well in that first transfer window as well. But the more I look at it, and of course, hindsight's 2020, right? So that helps you look back. The more I look back on it, he's not necessarily a West Ham manager. I don't think he understood the limitations of the squad that he had, and just saying you've got to be a big team mentality. You got to play like a big team. You got to act like a big team. That doesn't necessarily mean that the players that you have are fit for purpose to do that. So, at least with Moyes, he understands the kind of team that we have. He understands the kind of players that we have. He understands the level that they're at. And I'm hopeful that if anything less, he's at least going to make him give the 110% effort. Because if you're not good enough, skill-wise, it was like Bish saying on Friday Night Lights last week. If you're not good enough skill-wise, you have to be able to contribute effort-wise. I think was essentially what he was saying. So that's the kind of team that we have. We have very few players that are so skilled that they could be, the highlight reel on any other team in the Premier League. Anderson's got everything in his tool belt. Lanzini's got everything in his tool belt. But neither of them show up enough. So if you're not going to show up, at the very least, you've got to put in 110% week in, week out, and I think Moyes at least understands that.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because I felt like we were tactically playing better in the beginning when Pellegrini started, but he just lost control of the locker room. And that is the worst thing as an athlete you can do as a coach, is to lose control of the situation. So I think that really burned him in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Moyes is also just a really good man manager. Like John said, he knows how to get the best out of the players that he has. I think that we do have like a couple players that are a combination of the effort and skill, and I think that one of those is Jared Bowen, who I'm excited to see once we start up again. I really like what I've seen from Jared Bowen so far. He's made those runs that we haven't had made in a long time. But he still puts out that effort like he did against Southampton. I think he tracked all the way back to help cover Ngakia a couple times. So I'm just really excited to see Bowen back. I think he's been a great addition so far.
We've got a friend.
Oh,
Hello, how are we all?
Hi, good. How are you?
Great.
I'm all right. Sorry, I was sitting. I missed a DM from someone. I was sitting on Photoshop, and I was like, "Oh, American Hammer's alive." Then I looked at my phone, and I saw a message being like, "Hey, are you awake?" And I was like, "Oh."
You know, I never recognize you now without the hair.
Yeah, it's a big thing I get. You should have seen the first when I first got it, when I did that and that at the same time. Literally, the boat. I went down to the boats, and no one recognized me. It was great.
It's working though. Look at you. See, now people are in your DMs now that you shaved.
Well, you know, I mean, listen, I don't want to bait people out, but Tim was in my DMs long before the shave. I'm just putting it out there.
Oh,
You wouldn't be saying that if you saw the chat room on the last show tonight.
yeah, exactly.
Apparently, Tim's got a tramp stamp, but we'll move on.
Listen, I'm not one to judge. I'm not one to judge.
yeah, we were discussing that in the last show in the chat room, and Tim wasn't there, so I hope he didn't go back and look at the comments. Could be trouble.
He probably did.
So, Wally, you brought up an interesting point before. You're a big fan of Frederick.
I am.
And a lot of our group members are not. Tell us why you're a fan.
Okay. In fact, I was just watching the replay of the Billy Bonds, where they named the Billy Bonds stand, and that was on today, yes. And I was watching Fredericks closely, and he, is lightning fast. He's, up the pitch, and he's back down on defense. And granted, he made some decent crosses in that game, and maybe once or twice lost the ball, but so I don't understand why nobody likes him, because or they don't. They think, okay, Ngakia, put Ngakia right in. We've got a real right back here or something. I don't get it. So help me out. What am I missing?
Charlie, you want to take that?
I don't want to offend Wally. I love him.
No, please offend me.
No, do you know what it is, right?
My name is Wally. I can take all the
Do
abuse.
you know what it is? Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with some of the stuff you say. I think the one thing I will give him credit for is that he is very good at recovery runs. And part of that's just because he is so bloody fast. Yeah. But I do think that he does get back into nice positions when he does. But the problem is he's so out of position that he sort of has to be good at it. And I think that's probably why. Like, the dude, it's not even a case where I think he'd be better suited to wing back role. I just don't think he's that defensively sound. And I think probably his pace has got him out of so many scraps for such a long time that he's just never sort of had to learn it. And when you get taken up to the top division, all of a sudden that sort of becomes painfully apparent when you're no longer up against, I don't know, Anthony Knockaert, you're up against Hazard or whoever it might be, right? I think I just don't think he's good enough to even be a second choice, unfortunately. I just can't see it. I have no what's the word I'm looking for? No confidence, no like solidity. I just look at it when he's on the pitch and I think that is just a problem waiting to happen. And he's not good enough going forward to where I would be accepting of that. Sometimes you see a fullback who's so good at going forward and so good at creating crosses and assists and chances that you can almost forgive a lack of defensive ability. Whereas in his case, I don't think that's. I wouldn't even go that far with him,
So
unfortunately.
Charlie, his name scares you when it comes up on the bench.
among other things, yes. Yeah.
And so, Wally, just to add on what Charlie said, one of the things that we touched on before is just, when we're just kicking the ball and we're not playing to feet and moving the ball properly, that's where, when he pushes up and we don't have someone to support when, we turn over the ball, that's where we get into trouble. So,
But I've seen him come, track back super fast and make, those diving tackles in our penalty area. I mean, I've seen him also give up a penalty or two doing that.
Right.
But he's been successful sometimes. So
exactly.
What you're saying is he's out of position, up the pitch more than.
And that's okay. You can be out of position, but you also have to communicate with your teammates that, hey, if I'm going to overlap you, someone's got to drop back, and that doesn't always occur.
But Wally brought up a funny thing there with Fredericks, right? And we saw that in his YouTube video when we first signed him, was all the slide tackles that he had to make. And I think rule number one as a defender really is you want to stay on your feet as much as possible. Right. If you're lunging, if you're sliding, you've got more opportunities to pick up reds, to give fouls in silly areas. And that's my issue with him, is he's not in the right position, like what Charlie was saying. He's very good at recovery runs because he has to be.
Right.
He's not in the right position to begin with.
So Josh, you said you played center defense.
Yeah.
Right? So talk about that.
Okay. I just wanted to say one thing about the Fredericks thing, and I could kind of use this in the center back thing. One thing that Wally, you make some great points. Fredericks he's fast, and he's worked on his crossing this season. Like he's had a couple assists, one to Allaire where he scored against Bournemouth. That was a great cross. And then the other one where his goal against Palace, which was another great cross just along the box. So I think that's a great part of his game. One thing I think is that Fredericks doesn't know how to hold his line. There have been a couple goals this season that we thought were offsides, but then you look at the VAR and Fredericks is keeping them onside.
Oh, I see.
So it's just annoying. It's happened a couple times. It happened a couple times last season, but there was no VAR. So there was, no complaints, but now it's actually come to fruition. We've kind of seen that. And I'm just saying, like, I played in high school, I was a center back, and that was always annoying, trying to keep the line together and having a player not hold the line. So I can't even imagine what players like Diop or Balbuena or Ogbonna are going through with Fredericks trying to keep him in line. Sorry.
How do they keep that line? I mean, do you decide, okay, we're going to go up to the top of the penalty box, or how is that done?
Yeah, so it happens a lot. It's a lot of training. I remember Pellegrini, when he first got here, that was his focus, was keeping a high line. It's been his game since he was at Manchester City, was keeping the high line. And it worked a lot of the time, I think. So it's all about just communication across the back. It's all about making sure that everyone is on the same page at the same time. If one player is out of position, then it messes the whole lineup. Everyone's got to reshift. And that in high school training, that's what we did as well. We would go over keeping a line and just keeping in the same line and moving together and shifting together, which was a big part of our game in high school. So playing center back in high school was a great experience. It taught me my communication skills, my speaking skills. It got me, it just got me a lot closer with my defense, and communication was just always key. And that's why keeping the same defense is always going to be key for the best teams, because they know each other so well.
Yeah. I wish it improved my communication skills. I can't say the same from my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
it's can run, so it's not
I don't know.
One thing I'll say, Wally, to give you some hope for the future, is that what Josh is saying about like that sort of communication and stuff like that. A lot of like holding lines is very much drilled into you, like in training. Like you do it so often, over and over again, to the point where you should sort of know without even speaking to your like centre back. So in his case, I don't know, whoever's playing centre right back, Diop, whoever it is that day, right? You almost need to know where they are without even thinking about it. Because if you're a right back and you're looking forward, the second you go like that to see where they are, you're not looking at the opponent and they can go past you, right? So you almost have to have it in your head. You drill it constantly. So the hope might be, now that he's got a defensive-minded manager, that might be a focus that he gets drilled into him. Like, this is where you have to be. This is where the line is. You cannot move from this. Do it again until you repeat it to its muscle memory. You'd hope maybe that would be a thing. I don't think it will happen, but that's how, if I was to spin it positively, that's what I would say, is maybe he will get that. Because now he's just going to have to learn it from his now defensive-minded manager, as opposed to Pellegrini, who didn't focus so much on the defense.
We play a lot less of it as well, that high line now with Moyes, which is a big deal. That used to, it scared the crap out of me because we didn't have the tools to do it properly. And that's why that Newcastle game, what was that Shelby talking about afterwards? We know they push up and just playing the ball backwards and a quick chip over the top allows, your more central players just to run through that line complete. And we're just stuck. We're not moving. Joss mentioned the offside, and we had a few come from midfield as well, I believe. I think when Masuaku was playing out that way, I want to say Lanzini may have been keeping some players on side once or twice as well. It was just the communication wasn't there, and we didn't have the right players to pull it off, I don't think. Very high risk, high reward when you play that high of a line.
So Moyes doesn't play the high line as much. Is that
right?
Okay.
Yeah, but and Katie will probably tell you better. Obviously having professional trainers, Katie. Well, no, what I mean is, right, like I play Sunday League, and that's all I've ever played. Nobody's ever been paid to teach me how to play football. It's just watching it, right? The people were paid to teach you how to play football. You have like people with actual coaching badges and stuff. So you could probably address Wally's question better than I could, but what I would categorize Pellegrini's defensive style as would be offside trap first.
Yes.
Like that was his main source of defense, was trying to catch players offside to nullify any kind of attack from the other team before sticking a body on them, before keeping goal side, before playing on the shoulder of an attacker. Like he very much wanted to use the line so that you couldn't get into the last third of the pitch.
And that works very well when you have a strong defense. And as Josh was saying earlier, if you can communicate properly, and someone is, they know when to make that step, and step is when you're, moving forward to catch them off sides, those strikers, it works very well, but we just didn't have the communication for it. And we, like, John said, we were constantly getting chipped over, and it, was just heart attack after heart attack.
And the speed. You need speed to play that system.
Yeah. Correct.
So what team in the Premier League plays it well? Is there a team that does
I'd say probably the best team would be Liverpool. They've got the speed, but they've also got I feel like with Pellegrini's system, once a player was beyond our back line and they weren't offsides, it was like all hands on deck. Everyone's brain sort of goes. There's the plan A is out the window. Is there a plan B? Liverpool they always seem to have it. They've got the speed in the back, like I said, but they've also just got the defensive awareness of Van Dijk, and whoever's playing next to Van Dijk, that's Van Dijk just makes him better. So I think Liverpool would probably be the best example of a team that can play a high line in the Premier League.
Are there any to play that first though? Sorry, Charlie.
No, I was just going to say it's a very top team system, really, because it requires defenders who are so good. Because not only are you trying to snuff stuff out so early on, it's like the second it gets past you, which is the problem. Like with the Newcastle game, for example, the second someone got past that high line, it's Saint Maximin coming through, and no one is catching him. It doesn't matter. It could be Fredericks running after him. No one's going to catch him because he's so fast. Yeah. It's very much a system that works for a lot of top teams. Like you look at Pep sides for Barcelona, for example, Bayern Munich did it, because they have such good bloody players that you can sort of put the defenders in a position to defend high up the pitch and not worry too much about it. That's also where you see sweeper keepers like Neuer, or in the Liverpool example, Alisson coming to play, because they are again so good. Whereas if you're a team who are mid to low table in the Prem and under, it doesn't happen that often, and it doesn't work that often either, unless you have rapid centre backs, which kind of makes sense why he bought Diop, but the rest of them aren't. Even he's not that fast compared to, say, I don't know, in the Liverpool example, Joe Gomez is significantly quicker than him, for example.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that like having this highline system is the first step to becoming one of these top tier teams, or is it like multiple? There are multiple ways to do so. Yeah,
I think. Well, I think you can become a top team in a lot of different ways. I think a high line is useful if you want to play a certain style of football. It's like defensively, it was very much, as John said and Katie said, it's like offside first is very much what it is, but it's also helpful for if you want to control the game. So like if you want to control the game high up the pitch and have a very possession-based system, then having a high line allows that, because A, the further up the pitch you turn over back into your possession, the more you can control the game, and B, you just have more people to hem them in, right? If there's like, if they're trying to hit you and you've got a wall of people up until almost the halfway line at times, then you can control the ball better. Whereas if you look at, say, top teams like, like Liverpool when they face top teams in the Champions League, or Dortmund whenever they faced Munich when Klopp was there, was my favourite one, because the Gegenpress system is very much, you try to win the ball back as high up the pitch as possible, and they're all up there. Like, oh my god, like they had no the defensive awareness in the first 10 seconds of Dortmund losing possession was nuts. They were just not existing. They were just all up there, and then the second they lose it, they're like sprinting back for their lives and going back into that system. So even top teams who do play a highlight get back very, very quickly, and that was, I think, our problem with Pellegrini. Is he was too calm at that. We didn't retreat anywhere near quick enough as what we should have, and we tried to compact the pitch and it just didn't work properly.
Right. Okay.
Also didn't have the legs in midfield.
Yeah.
If you got people floating right through you in the middle, that's dangerous no matter what system you play, but especially with that system, because then all it takes is one pass in behind you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Suso, was a great addition then, because he's added he's a man mountain who can move in midfield, and we've needed that for how long now? Ever since like the 15-16 season, maybe. I think he's the ideal Kiyate replacement that we've missed for a long time. So I'm glad that he's here, because he's like Kiyate, but he can also pass the ball, which is great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we had, several big holes in our team this year. So, looking into next year, we really, need to find players that are going to fill those key spaces. How do we feel about Lanzini?
Who wants to start? Because I'm going to be on the negative side with that one.
Yeah.
Well, I am too, so.
I can try and be positive. Try is the operative word, but I can give it a shot. I mean, so to try and stay positive before everyone else. The talent is very clearly there, and we've all seen it for years and years. The dude has it. Like, when he is on the ball, he can dribble past people like there's no tomorrow. He can find a pass like there's no tomorrow. And sometimes he has that little glimmer of specialness that only very few players have, where he will pull something out of the bag where you're like, bloody hell, where the hell's that come from? Mm-hmm. With him, I feel like it's just, I don't want to say it's just a mental thing, because it could also be some physical problems from injuries and whatnot. But even his skill set before that, I think if it was just a key of unlocking the mental side of his game, because I think that's where the block is that I don't know if he's scared or whether he's just downright depressed from the last 2 years of football and constantly missing out on his huge opportunities, because he had some massive opportunities. Like, playing for Argentina in a side with Messi and all of those other incredible players is like the pinnacle of what his career could have been. He was on the verge of a move to Liverpool. He went on to win the Champions League, and he kept getting these annoying injuries, and it might just be a case where he's just downright depressed, and I get that, Jesus Christ. But I think although I probably would sell him, to be completely honest, I do think there is something there. And if we had a good man manager, which I'm not saying Moyes is or isn't, but if we had the right man manager, there is something to be got at. And it wouldn't surprise me if he left, someone else was able to get that back out of him. I don't think he'll ever reach the heights of what he could have in his career now, just because of how much his injuries have debilitated him. But it wouldn't shock me if he went to Spain or wherever, and all of a sudden he's getting linked to the top teams again, because the dude has it. Like, technical ability wise, he just has it.
Absolutely, I agree. I think there was a little bit of him being timid in there.
Mhm.
So I think once he gets over that and he can, get his confidence back, I think things will change. But I don't know. I know the rest of the gang isn't too thrilled.
Now, I want to put something to bed because people keep saying it, and they've been saying it. Lanzini's a different player since after his injury. Lanzini is exactly the same player as he was before his injury. He did all of his tricks and his skills and moving from east-west, not north-south, near the halfway line before he got injured, and he's still doing it after he got injured and now that he's come back. It's the same player. He shows up in moments. And he's got everything. The kid has got absolutely everything. It's in his tool belt, and he just doesn't use it in the right places. I want to be a Lanzini fan. I really do. I want him to succeed because a good Lanzini is a good West Ham. We miss, and we've always thrived on that playmaker, whether it's Berkovic, whether it's Bishop, all those kind of number 10s that kind of control the game and are able to link up the play from the back to the front. He's that guy. If he does it in the right place, and for me, he's never done it in the right place.
Yeah, I was watching back the last match of the Bolin, and maybe it's because of Payet was around, but Lanzini looked great in that match, and he was way more active, it seemed like, than he has been of late, and I don't know. It seems like also that maybe has affected Anderson as well, because Anderson looked so much better last season. Something about this second season with Pellegrini, just they all just don't seem like motivated or whatever. Some of the foreign players, and I had high hopes that we were going to go places this season. It seemed like things were lining up, and we started off well, and then it just went all to pot. I don't know. So anyway. Yeah, as far as Lanzini, he doesn't seem as bright and quick as he did 5 years ago, and he's not that old, so I don't understand.
Well, I would say injury, but John will disagree. But it's interesting that you brought up Anderson as well, Wally. He's kind of on my list. What do you guys think about Anderson?
I'm a big fan of his. Let me tell you.
All right.
I love Felipe. He's obscenely talented. I think he's our most technically gifted player at the club. And when Moyes came in, I feel like I thought that we were going to have what we had with Arnautovic when Moyes came in, is just like Moyes coming in and saying, "Look, you have to do this, or you're not going to play." And we saw what that did to Arnautovic, and I thought that's what was going to happen with Anderson. And I feel like it did for a little bit in the FA Cup game against Gillingham, I think, or Gillingham. Him and Masuaku linking up, that was like the Anderson that we had missed for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then he obviously scored against Bournemouth, where I think he ran like probably 30 yards with the ball and slotted it past the keeper. So that was it's still there. The Anderson is still there. And last season, I haven't looked at his stats this season, but last season he was putting in tackles as well. Like there was a myth that he was lazy. No, he was like he covered the most ground or something in the team. So maybe it's this season he's been coached differently. Pellegrini said, "Look, you don't have to tackle as much. We're going to play you higher up the field." So I still like Anderson. I feel like I saw a rumor that we were going to swap him with Irving Lozano, and I think that's dumb. I think that Anderson is still the Felipe Anderson that was last season. And I hope that he can do better than he did last season, because he had those like eight or nine games where he was scoring almost every game, and he was our key player, and then he dropped off. So if we can get that Felipe Anderson, then we have a really, really good team, because as like John said, a good Lanzini is a good West Ham. I think also a good Felipe Anderson is a good West Ham.
So how do we get them back?
That's a good job. I need the money to do so.
Yeah, I have to agree with Joss. It seemed like when Moyes came in and he started, ticking upwards, I think. But then in the Sheffield game, near the end of the match, he got clattered. Somebody just took him out, and he could barely walk around the pitch. And we'd used up all our subs, so he had to stay on the pitch. And he was just like, you could see him like holding his back and just barely moving. And then he missed several matches since that game, and And then when he's been fit again, he hasn't, we had Bowen and, he hasn't really gotten back in. So I felt like he was coming, like you say, Jaws, I felt like he was coming back. But the other thing about Anderson was last year when he played with Anatovic and he would, he wouldn't quite put the right pass into Anatovic or something. And now Arnie was like throwing up his arms at him and Felipe would kind of look down and you could see his body language. And I thought this year with no Arnie that he would be, like he wouldn't be under pressure to, put in the perfect pass or whatever. And he would be more flowing and everything. You know what? I think the opposite has happened in that maybe Arnie's attitude was actually getting him to perform, even though his body language didn't look like it. But because, after Arnie's left, he really didn't perform all first part of the season. So that's my sort of pet theory.
Mm-hmm. I think Neil's got the right idea here. Reboot them, turn them on, off again. It always works.
No, he's spot on. That's
good competition.
That's probably the comment that I would make. Is I think this break may be the best thing for Lanzini and Anderson. To be honest, they both look bereft of confidence. So, hopefully they can wipe the slate clean and just start over as if it's a new season if we ever get back to it.
Right.
I think with Anderson, we're just seeing like when he was at Lazio, and I used to read about him a lot because he was always obscenely talented. But he never started or didn't start that often. And everyone, I remember Italian journalists always used to call him the Lazio's 12th man. And that's because he was always the first person to come off the bench. When they needed someone to get in, he would get in wherever he played. I mean, in his last season, he was playing wing back for Lazio. That's how much he was just sort of there. But it was like he never had the consistency enough to fully put together a season where he'd become the main man there. And when he joined us, I always had the hope of it being because of his age, because he is still quite young. Although for a person in his position, he's basically at his prime now, or in the next year or two being his prime. But I always thought, maybe it's his age. Maybe that's why he's not quite got there yet. Maybe this is going to happen. This will be the maturity of him. And I think, unfortunately for him, he came in where the manager wasn't the right manager for a start. I don't think Pellegrini was maybe Pellegrini played the right system and put him in the right place, but he wasn't the person who would be able to come in, I don't think Pellegrini has ever put his arm around a player in that sort of metaphorical sense. I don't think he ever did that. He didn't look, he's giving off the vibe of that. And I think when you have a player who's super inconsistent at times, that's kind of what they need. And I don't think he got that, unfortunately. But Moyes managed to get something out of Lanzini first time, so maybe that's what we're going to get now. I don't know, but I think John's right. This is the right time for them to have a break. Maybe not the right circumstances, but at least the right time, and they can come back and be a more together unit with more focus and more goals and different goals and stuff, because it looks like Moyes will be here for the long term, and then at that point you've just got to press him if you're going to get in a position, because let's be real, if Anderson or Lanzini, maybe, I don't know, but if Anderson's leaving, he's not going to a club bigger than West Ham. And that's not us. That's not me saying we're this massive club. That's just saying it's a downhill trajectory he is on, and he doesn't probably want to move to, I don't know, Granada or some nonsense. I don't know.
Katie, at the level that you played at, Katie, right? So we were talking about that before. You had coaches with coaching badges, and you played to a very good level. How do you coach that out of a player? How do you coach them out of a slump? Have you seen it in the dressing room or on the pitch? Is it just a case of giving them more time, or how have you seen professional coaches coach players out of a slump?
Sure. Coaches have many different tactics in regards to getting the best out of their players. Truly phenomenal coaches have to know what those players need. Each player is different. So for one person, it might be pulling them out and having them sit and watching what they're doing wrong, or, another one is just letting them play through it. It just depends on, what the situation is and the type of personality that player has. I'm the type of person where you don't have to tell me. I already know what I did wrong, and I will make up for it. So sitting me on the bench is not going to work for me. It's that's the coaching thing. The coach has to figure out how to manage the player on that level. So it's a coaching thing.
One thing that I find interesting, I was watching a Crystal Palace documentary on NBC one of the weekends without soccer, And it was when Alan Party was still coaching, and he was talking like you were, Katie, because he's talking about coaching Johan Kabay, and he said that Kabay was the kind of player that all Party would have to do is say like, that's not good enough, and Kabay would instantly fix himself. Or there was players like Dwight Gale where they would have to, or no, not Dwight Gale, Will Zaha, where he would have to get on his case and, you know, yell at him until Zaha gets it right. So I think you're right. I feel like Pellegrini just wasn't that kind of coach. He would always seem kind of hands off, and Felipe is I think he's the kind of player that needs that hands on sort of coaching to get the best out of him.
And we've talked about it many times before that Pellegrini isn't a developer. He doesn't develop, you know, the young players. He's not good at knowing how to do all that. It was his system, and he was just going to fit everybody into it.
Right.
The thing is like, I look at Felipe, right? Sorry, I'll be quick. I look at Felipe, and I think he was super, like, he was the right type of player, but he might not have been the right type of person for Pellegrini, if you know what I mean. When I look at Pellegrini's system and the sort of possession-based, high up the pitch, passing, he's very much a winger of the playmaker mold, as opposed to, say, Antonio, who is very much a cut inside inverted forward, if I'm going to be kind about him, and shoot and go for goal, right? Whereas like Felipe Anderson was very much the guy who was going to cut inside and make like a smart reverse ball to try and get a striker in a position. Like one of the things that frustrates me is when he gets in good positions, I see him pass to someone and I'm like, dude, I know you can swaz this in top bins if you really want to. I've seen you do it. Just bloody do it. Don't like pass it to someone to let them try. Just take the shot. Whereas he seems to want to set other people up, and that's a grand trait. Don't get me wrong. I edit videos all the time for other people, so I understand helping other people. But like, bro, sometimes you just got to put it in the top bins. And I think he was the right player for that tactics, but he wasn't potentially the right person, which is also what 50% of scouting should be. You shouldn't just look at someone and say, oh, he's got this ability, he can do this, he can do that. But you just go, can he fit into the mold of the team? Can he fit into the ethos of the person, the ethos of the manager? Can he fit in with the people? That should be what 50% of it is. And if you're missing that, then you can have a player like Felipe Anderson, who is absurdly talented, but can't get the best out of them because of the type of person they are and the manager is and everyone else, because it's people at the end of the day. If you sit next to someone at the office you don't get on with, you're probably not going to work as much as if you sit next to someone you do get on with.
Charlie, he's not cocky enough.
Yeah, that's potentially
if
part of it.
He had the arrogance of an Outovich, you know what I mean? Like he would be a top 50 player in the world. If he had that self-belief and confidence that an Outovich had, he would.
Yeah, it almost seemed like this season, I think we talked about this, you know, it was almost as if Pellegrini told him, don't, you know, under no circumstances go into the penalty area. Don't take a shot, you know, always try to find the pass. It was like he was never allowed to shoot.
Yeah, and that was frustrating.
Yeah, it was.
I agree.
So, anyway.
So I know we touched on it last time, the chat right before this, regarding the postponement of the season and finishing it up beginning in August. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have very strong feelings, and it didn't come up what I think. So,
well, I think here I'll quickly say what I think. I think Karen Brady was right. Just void it all. Keep us up, you know. And
well, I don't know if I agree with that, but
so that's my thoughts.
Wow, I can't believe you're agreeing with Karen Brady.
I know, isn't that great? Yeah.
Wally.
I think Joss is the only opinion I haven't heard on this. Go on, Joss.
Oh, mine? Well, I'm friends with a couple Liverpool fans. I think it'd be hilarious if the season got voided. I'd feel bad, but not that bad. And we'd stay up. And interestingly, I've heard that I think it was the Scottish League. We're going to look at points per game and use that to declare who stayed up. And I think the map, though. No, I'm just saying, like, it'd be interesting, definitely, to sort of to see how that goes. West Ham still stay up, so I mean, if they want to do that, then by all means, any scenario where we stay up, and that's good enough for me.
Listen, if we can get sued for having Carlos Tevez, you know, affect the season, if you will, right? Like, that makes no sense to me. Everybody's had a different strength of schedule. Everybody's played different teams. I don't know if you can do it by points per game. I think everybody just has to hurt the same amount.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just going to end up having to be shit for everybody, but it's shit, and it's the same level of shit for everybody. I don't know what the solution is. I originally was a fan of bring 3 teams up, have a bigger league for a year, and start relegating a few more. But I don't know. I don't know, because now you're talking about is next season even starting on time? So that brings up a whole different question for me. But
well, Katie, what do you think?
I mean, I was a fan of just ending it where it was at that certain point in time where we were even beginning to discuss it. I just think that, you know, you can't control what's going on in the universe at this point, and obviously it's continuing, and we may not even begin in the beginning of August, which makes me really hurt because August is my birthday month, so soccer is the best thing ever when it's on.
Right.
But, you know, I just think that if we try to smush too much, you know, we're looking at them not having proper training time. Also, you know, the amount of games that they would have to play in such a short period of time. We have such an issue with injuries. So I just don't see it faring well for West Ham. But, you know, I'm open to anything, truly. It's just, I think that we need to take care of our players, so we should be vying for that.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with you. I originally thought, I want to see the rest of the games played out behind closed doors, say July or whenever it is, just to get the season done, so we at least have all the games played. But then Fashizi, who was in the chat at the time, said, I can't back games being behind closed doors, taking health workers away from the situation at hand, because obviously, and I just had never thought about that. I'd obviously thought, oh, we could just put the teams there and then the squad and some of the coaching staff and the referees or whatever. But I didn't think, oh wait, hang on, they'll have to have ambulances and medical people and all this sort of stuff. Right. And I was like, actually, yeah, no, that's totally right. And so I'm of the mindset at this point, just end it now. Just say where we're at, it's crap, it is what it is. There's going to be a massive asterisk by this season no matter what happens. It's just the way life is. I would probably do what John said he's not a fan of, which is bring the teams up. Just so any negative consequences sort of don't get borne out to their fullest extent, but all the positives can. Therefore, Sheffield United get into Europe, Leicester get into the Champions League, and then next season get rid of, say, the League Cup, just to lighten the fixture load to an extent, because ultimately it's just the League Cup anyway. As much as I love trophies and I like the League Cup, I genuinely like the League Cup. I say it's not just the League Cup, I do actually like it, but just get rid of it for the sake of just like fixture congestion, and just deal with it for a year or two, just specifically because this situation's hopefully not going to come up again, and that way at least we can put the health and well-being of not only just the players but everyone ahead of anything else. Because yeah, it's a weird situation, and I don't think any solution to it won't cause almighty trouble for everyone. Yeah,
I mean, Tony's right here. He says money. That's why they're trying to finish it. Of course, you know, we know they want the money. I don't know. I'm with you, Charlie. I think it's gonna go on a little bit longer than, you know, what we're expecting. I think we might even have some troubles next year, so we're going to have to come up with a plan.
Look, the important thing is that this past weekend, we here in Philadelphia were denied having the NBC Premier League morning event. We were all excited about going to that and hanging out and cheering for West Ham on, you know, live TV potentially. So we need to stay up, and that event will be here in the fall. We were promised that it'll be the next one will be in Philadelphia. So we just need to stay up so we can go to that and cheer from West Ham.
That's right. We have everyone coming from Chicago, DC.
Charlie Boy said he was coming.
Charlie Boy. Yeah. Where you at, Charlie Boy?
Yeah, he's coming.
Yeah. So we just got to hold on a little longer.
Tim might even make an appearance and show off his tattoo.
It's a tramp stamp.
Tramp stamp, right?
All right, guys. Well, we're getting about to be that time, so we're going to wrap up. Great show. Thanks again for watching. Everyone, stay home, stay safe and healthy. You know what to do.
Yeah, learn.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks.